Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be critiquing my viewers' art. Many of you said the first critiquing video I did was really helpful and that you'd like to see me do it again, so here we are. When we want to improve, it can be really helpful to get an outside opinion from someone else because we can't always see what is wrong in our own art. I won't be critiquing everything in a picture, I'll just be focusing on one or two things that I think can be improved upon. Anyways, this picture is by InPhoenix, and I want to start off by saying that she's so pretty, and I love all the different effects you added to the picture, and I love her eyes. They are so pretty, and I love the bit of red you added to her eyelashes. So one thing I wanted to focus on was this area kind of right here on the side of her head, because if we take a look at it, if I draw out what her head is doing, she has kind of an interesting head shape. So what I would recommend is bringing this side of the head in a little bit more, somewhere to around here, because there's a bit too much space on the side of her face. So if the side of her head is like here, then we'll make her ear go about here. Her ear is also very small in the original picture. Generally, the ears kind of start around the top of the eye. I actually placed it a little bit high here. So I generally start the ear right here around the top of the eye, and then it kind of comes up. And then we go to about the bottom of the nose. So that's how I would place the ear. And then I'll kind of sculpt out where I think the ear should be with the color brown. And I'll also use some of her skin tone. I'll kind of just paint it in here. So now we have the new ear, and I'm gonna change the hair to go over her ear. Also, it might help to add a bit of hair by the ear, because people often have hair kind of by the ear. So I'll just give her a little bit of sideburns, I guess.
And then I'll bring this strand down and like it's going behind the ear. And I'll also bring this other strand down a little bit. And then we'll kind of cover up the previous ear.
So here is the original version. And here is my version with the ear adjustment. If we go in now and try to find the shape of her head, if it's going up around here and up kind of around here, we get a kind of more normal head shape. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much InPhoenix for submitting your art. It's really, really pretty, and I hope I was able to help a little bit. So this next picture is by FailSkizz. The characters are really cute. I love how he's kind of flustered by her presence. So the thing I wanted to talk about in this picture is the shading. I feel like it's a little bit muddy feeling, and I feel like that's because of the color you chose. You seem to have chosen this kind of desaturated purple, and I don't know if that color works the best with some of the colors. Like, she has a lot of warm colors, so using kind of a cooler purple seems to not really fit the coloring. Also, I want to say thank you for submitting a version with no shading. That makes my life a lot easier. So, a lot of times when I am shading with only one color, I will use a muted reddish purple color, sort of a magenta. Especially when shading warmer colors. If I'm shading cooler colors, I'll use a desaturated navy blue. So I'm going to make a new layer and then set it to multiply. And I'm just going to go around the picture and start adding where I think shadows will be. You seem to have used a soft brush. I'm going to use a hard-edged brush just because I find it easier to use. My shadows will look really dark right now. I start by applying them super dark, and then I will lighten them by lowering the opacity later on. That way the colors are easy to adjust, and a lot of times I tend to kind of make colors too light if I start with them light, but if I start with them dark and then lighten them, they end up not being super light, if that makes sense. So some of the areas I'm adding shadows are like this bottom side of her hair, under the neck. I'm also gonna add some underneath her chest. So for him, I'm still going to use the same color for his skin, but I am going to use a different color for his hoodie and maybe even his hair, just because they seem to be kind of cooler colors. So it can be better to shade those with cooler colors instead of warmer colors, especially when doing this kind of shading where you're only using a limited amount of colors to shade a lot of different colors. So I'm now going to change to the navy blue, and I'll just add some shadows around the hoodie and kind of follow the wrinkles and such. Okay, so I'll try to add a little bit of gradients. I'll turn off my shadows and then use the magic wand tools to select some areas. So for his hoodie, I'm going to add a gradient of the darker blue color. Once again, I make them kind of overly dark because I will lighten them in a little bit. So I'm going to select her sweater, and we will add some of the muted reddish magenta color. And then I will lower the opacity. And for their heads, I might actually add a lighter color to suggest that there's light coming from above. So I will lower the opacity of the shading to make it lighter. So I noticed in this picture that you added kind of blushing, but is with the same purpley color. This can make it kind of hard to read that it's supposed to be blush because blush is often like a reddish pinky color. So I'm going to make another new layer, and then I'm going to select a reddish color to add to their cheeks. This can help them feel more lively. I'm applying it very dark once again, and then I will go in and lighten things up. Also, for adding shadows to the eyes, I did notice you did that in the original picture. You added kind of a shadow along the top of the eye. And I will erase it where you have the highlight, just so that the highlight still pops out and it's not being casted in the shadow.
So I go in and I'm just going to add the highlights. I want to try to keep in mind where my light source is. In my mind, it's kind of coming from above. So we're going to get a lot of the highlights on the top parts of things, like the shoulders and the hair. I'm going in with the highlights being totally opaque, but in a little bit I will lighten the colors by lowering the opacity.
So here's the original version where all of the shading is using the same kind of purpley color. And here's my version where I try to use some kind of different colors. The thing I want you to take away from this is to maybe try using different colors in your shading to help things feel a little bit more vibrant. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
And it's done. Whew. Wouldn't it be cool to start taking art commissions? But I don't know how much to charge for my work.
Hi, I think I can help you.
Ah! Are you talking? But you're just a picture.
It's okay, don't think about it too much. I'm just here to help you.
Okay. So how can you help me?
I wanted to tell you about Skillshare.
Skillshare? Sounds familiar. Tell me more.
Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes on many different topics like illustration, photography, freelancing, and so much more. Classes include a combination of video lessons and a class project. Most classes are under 60 minutes with short lessons to fit any schedule.
So what class will help me?
You should take Pricing Your Work: How to Value Your Work as a Freelancer by Peggy Dean. This class will provide a simple guide through multiple scenarios and topics on pricing your work. Whether you're just beginning, have been at it for a while, or if you're a professional designer.
That sounds great. But how much does it cost?
Skillshare is very affordable. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. However, the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership.
Whoa, this class is really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So this next picture was submitted by Jaymari. I want to start off by saying the character's really cute. I really like their face and their hairstyle, and the way you shade hair is really neat. So the one thing I wanted to talk about for this picture was thinking of the form of the body underneath the clothing. So here we have the trap muscle, and if I follow the form as to what it's doing underneath the jacket, it's going like this, and then his shoulder is maybe somewhere over here. And then it goes like that. And so his collarbone's going to somewhere around here. So we're going to try to draw the jacket in a way that matches the shoulders. So if this is his neck and it's coming down, and if the neck is kind of a cylinder, it's going in like this. And then we have the trap muscles, and they should continue kind of like this instead of dropping down into the jacket like they do right here. The same thing goes for this side. Right now the muscle's kind of going like that, but it should just be kind of extending out. If this is the center, because that's where his collarbone is, the collarbone would kind of come up and the collarbone kind of wraps around. So I'm going to draw a line for where the center of his rib cage is.
And we'll kind of try to draw what I think his ribs are doing. Or kind of the general shape of his rib cage. It's kind of turned, so we'll slightly see the side of it right here.
I'm going to flip the canvas. Flipping the canvas is a very helpful way to see if things are looking kind of wonky. I'm actually going to bring the trap muscle up a little bit, and then I'll kind of draw in some circles for where I think his shoulders should be. Here we can see that it seems like the shirt and the jacket are all kind of going this way, but if this is the center of his body, the jacket should be wrapping towards the center of his body, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to make the hood go more towards the center. We'll draw the line for his shirt. So instead of having the deepest point kind of over to the left over here, I'm having the deepest point be right here in the center. This is all very messy. I don't know if you are able to interpret what I'm doing. I'm just kind of sketching in his arm. In the original, we don't see much of this arm because it seems to be kind of behind. But being that he's slightly turned to the right, we'd actually be able to see this arm quite a bit. The shoulders are always kind of tricky, and I'm often trying to make them look right. Like right now, I'm going to actually kind of transform them a little bit because they're looking a little wonky. So I'm actually going to turn off the original picture and just try to clean this up. I'll probably have to keep this pretty messy. I'll try to maybe make it look a little bit more finished to match the body, but we'll see what I can do. I'm not sure what to talk about now. I'm kind of just trying to clean things up kind of quickly here so we're not here for ages. Okie dokie, so here are the new shoulders. Now I'm going to go in with colors and try to make them match the original picture. I also want to say I really like your color choices. They're really nice and pretty. I like how they kind of all go together. So here's the original version. Like I mentioned, I really love the shading and all the colors and how they go together. The main thing we're focusing on is what his shoulders are doing underneath his jacket. So here's the newer version. I tried to make it match the best that I could. I overall turned the entire upper body to match where the center of his collarbone is. In the original, it's kind of hard to tell what his body's doing underneath the jacket. And like I mentioned, the jacket and the t-shirt are kind of turning a different way than where the center of his collarbone is. So yeah, I hope that's kind of helpful. So this picture was submitted by Abby, and they wanted help with their shading. They're not sure how to make their shading more detailed because their shading style is kind of simple. And I want to start off by saying the character is so cute. And I do quite like your shading style. It is simple, but it's really clean. And I feel like you use really nice colors. So one way we can make this feel more detailed and interesting is by adding some darker colors on top of the original colors. So you have this lightning bolt right here, and it's making light on him, and he kind of seems to be in a dark area. So it might make things more interesting if we add some darker blue to the character. It will also make the lightning bolt really pop. Okay, so now that I have this darker color, and then I'm gonna start erasing it by where he has the lightning bolt because that part will have some light to it. So I'm just gonna lightly erase using a soft brush. I'll do the same around his hand because the lightning bolt would be putting some light onto the hand. And I might add a little bit of bounce light to the back of him. Bounce light is just when light is bouncing off of something. I often like to use it, especially in darker pictures, because it just helps the form kind of stand out and also makes things a little bit more interesting. So I'll just erase some of the shading on the back of him. And then I'm going to make a new layer above this multiply layer and clip it to that. And I'm going to use an even darker color to make the color get a little bit darker where it's going away from the lightning bolt. That way we get kind of a nice gradient. So here's before and here's after. It just helps the color get a little bit darker. Now I'm actually going to erase the multiply layer around his eyes because I kind of want those to really pop. So I'm also going to make a new layer and set it to, let's try hard light. I might switch it to add glow if I don't like the hard light. So I'm going to use a blue because the lightning bolt seems to be letting off kind of a bluey light. And I'm going to add some blue kind of all in this area to where the lightning bolt is. And yeah, I'm not liking the hard light, so let's try add glow. Yeah, that works a lot better. And this will just make it feel a little bit more interesting because we're adding some more of the blue light from the lightning bolt. And I'm going to lower the opacity to make it not as strong. I also want to add a little bit of blue highlights to his face because since we're getting the kind of bluey light from the lightning bolt, I also want to add it to his face. I'm also going to add a little bit to his nose just to help the form of his nose kind of pop out a little bit more. It'll make it feel more prominent and like it's there. And I'm going to add a little bit to his hair as well because it would be hitting his hair. It might be fun to add a bounce light that's a slightly different color. Maybe kind of like an orange or a yellow. You wouldn't have to do this. You could also just keep it white. I often like to use bounce lights that are a slightly different color than the main light, just because I feel like it makes it look kind of cool. So I'm going to go in with this orangey color and set it to add glow. And I'm going to make this a lot softer. It's not going to be nearly as bright as this. It'll just make the picture feel a little bit more interesting because we have a contrast in color. And now I'll go in with a larger brush and kind of add a lot of the orange. And now we'll lower the opacity a little bit. So here's without the orange and here's with the orange. I'm going to make a new layer and set it to add glow. And I'm actually going to add some of that orange to the background to kind of make it kind of blend in more so we don't just have this random orange just on him. It's also going in the background just a little bit. So lastly, I think I want to try to make the hair feel a little bit more interesting. His hair is kind of going all over the place and this can be really hard to add shading to because it's like, where do I add the shadows? Where do I add the highlights? Because the hair is just kind of like poof and going everywhere. So I'm going to use this kind of bluey color. And I made a new layer and I might just go around and try to add some hair detail. So what I often do is I kind of just draw a bunch of tiny little strokes and then I'll make them fade out. And I'll kind of just do this wherever I feel like I understand how the hair is flowing. Because if I try to do it like in this middle-y area, it can be a little confusing. But I know these areas are flowing like this. So it's a little bit easier to understand. So here's the original. Here's my version. I feel like you have a good idea of what colors to use and shadows. So I hope this helps you make your shading a little bit more interesting or detailed feeling. So here are all of the pictures I gave feedback on in this video. I want to thank you all so much for submitting your art. I hope that the information I gave was a little bit helpful. If you'd like to see me do this again in the future, please let me know and give this video a thumbs up. So thank you all so much for watching this video and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!